Welcome back to Ladies of Another View, and I want to welcome back our guest, Craig DeLuz, who's a member of Project 21, and he lives in California, Sacramento, California. But we need our missionaries out there too. But you know what? I do know there are conservatives out there, even though the far left has been dominating politics. And on the break, we were talking about the schools and some of their pushing of transgender policies. And what's going on with that?
Well, you have in the state of California, they have decided that they're going to go full in on what is likely the key issue that I believe helped turn around or not turn around, but help Donald Trump take the White House. If you look, the most successful commercial that Donald Trump had during his campaign, he spent $75 million on it, was the ad campaign where Kamala Harris, when she was Attorney General, expressed her support and talked about how she was willing to use taxpayer dollars to fund sex change operations for illegal immigrants who are in prison. Now, there's a whole lot of stuff that's included in that one topic. You've got people who are in prison in healthcare. You've got transgender rights. You've got illegal immigration. You've got all of this stuff. You've got transition surgeries and taxpayers paying for them. All of these things. But the thing is, that's where many California elected Democrats are. They believe that they believe wholly in the neo-Marxist, neo-cultural Marxist agenda so much. They believe that the election was lost because America is systemically racist and full of Nazis, not because they are 100% out of touch with the average mainstream voter. And as a result, what you saw in the state of California, you saw 9 counties. That's basically almost 20% of the counties in the state of California that voted for Joe Biden 4 years ago turned around and voted for Donald Trump. They realize Democrats are out of control here in the state of California. And the one thing that I believe that can help Republicans in California is that the Democrats don't even seem to understand, recognize, or are still at the very least in denial that they are completely out of control.
Well, obviously so, if they're calling a special session to impede what the Trump administration could potentially do. But that really is a nail on the head commercial. I mean, yeah, there's every topic, every hot topic, all in that one little bit. And that was one of the things that I thought was most interesting about this past election is people are fed up with this gender stuff. They're fed up with the multiple genders. They're fed up with the transitioning and all of that stuff. And there's a lot of outcry from people who did transition saying, what the heck were you guys letting me do? I mean, I'm now castrated. I can't have kids anymore. And I was just a 14-year-old girl. Why did you let me go into this? And so I'd imagine that's also the sentiment in California.
Well, the biggest part of it, though, has to do with the kids and the very fact that they're literally taking this and they're working to indoctrinate our kids in our schools. They want to make it such that parents, if you say, look, I don't want my children to engage in I don't want them to be transitioning without me knowing about it. I don't want them changing their name or changing their gender identity without me knowing about it. You have people in public education, people in government in the state of California that believe that you as a parent have no rights when it comes to that. They want to believe that you should have your children remove your parental rights severed so that your children can be transitioned. Now, keep in mind, these are kids who can't get an aspirin in school without parent permission, can't go to a tanning salon even with their parents' permission. But without their parents even knowing about it, they can start to take puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and even have surgery to remove healthy body parts without parents' knowledge or consent.
And kids have been taken out of homes. I talked to one woman, but it wasn't in California, it was in another state, whose adopted daughter was taken away because they weren't supporting her gender transition, which the school kind of pushed on her to begin with.
Right, and that reminds me of a bill I actually saw maybe 2 sessions ago now running through California, where if you weren't letting your child transition, you would be called by CPS and they would be would be taken away from you.
Well, it wasn't so much that you would be called by CPS, but if you were in the middle of a custody dispute, so let's say you and your spouse or the child's other parent were in a dispute, and they were trying to figure out who was going to get custody. The parent who was gender, let me clarify, let me do it, gender affirming, the one who would allow all of this stuff to happen, that's the parent who would wind up getting custody of the child. So it definitely played a role in custody of in whether or not you would be allowed to have custody of your children. California is also a sanctuary state for transgender children, meaning that if a parent wanted to from another state come to California and have this stuff done, the parents who was opposed to it, who was still back in the other state, would lose their parental rights in the state of California, or at least those rights would not be recognized in the state of California, simply because they disagreed with a child being able to make life-altering decisions.
Wow.
I just wonder what the future for California is, because now with this special session, they're obviously not learning their lesson. And you think about you have such an increase of homeless there, illegal immigrants that are there, and then people that want to get sex changes and get them paid for, they can go to California, and then you have these people that are paying these taxes, and then you hear about what's happening in the Hollywood realm, and you're just like, is it gonna implode? I mean, how can it sustain itself? Like, when is it just going to break at some point and say, we got to restart from the beginning?
Especially considering, I just want to add to that, is that a lot of the people and businesses leaving are paying the taxes. And a lot of the homeless and the immigrants, they're not paying the taxes. So the problems are just going to accelerate, I would think.
Well, and you're starting to see that already. We here in the state of California, we've seen two Soros-funded district attorneys. We've seen them removed from office because they refused to enforce the law. We saw a change in the the district attorney down in Los Angeles. Once again, refused to enforce the law. We saw the mayor of San Francisco get replaced. We've seen multiple initiatives that were on the state ballot where the state voted overwhelmingly. In fact, there was a Proposition 36, which basically undid aspects of a previous proposition that decriminalized a lot of crime. It turned a lot of that around. It reversed a lot of that, and it passed in every single county in the state of California. Voters are already waking up to the idea that policy matters. The key for Republicans is going to be to tie those policies around the necks of the Democrats that implemented them.
Right, and that is so true, because I remember talking about when was the last time we had the American people knowing about what president was picking, who they were picking for their cabinet. You know, people are awake now and they're paying attention now, and I don't want to say it's the first time in history, but it's been the first time in a while. So this should help your case out there in California, and hopefully you see some positive changes, especially through the ballot measure process.
And especially with the fire. You know, like
Yes.
that's got to wake up a lot of people. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, once again, as you continue to see, front and center the failures of Democratic leadership, it's incumbent then upon Republicans to be able to step up and not just point out those failures, but offer substantive solutions or alternatives, to be able to communicate in a way, to be able to promote policies that are actually going to help the people of California, not harm the people of California, that's actually going to allow people to keep more money in their pockets, not take more money out of their pockets, that's going to give them more control over their children's education, not less control over their children's education. And, you know, I feel pretty blessed in this case. We've got a number of young, new members of the California State Legislature who are not just who not just have the right positions, but are effective communicators when it comes to that. I don't see it something that's going to turn around overnight, but I do see something that if we can keep along the direction and electing leaders like Kevin Kiley, who represents us in Congress, like Josh Hoover, and like Joe Patterson, who represent us in the California legislature, I think as long as we're electing people like that, I think that we're going to see huge changes here in the state of California over the next decade or so.
Craig, you have a resume a mile long. Have you thought about going into politics?
I have run for office. I currently sit on a school board, been on the board for over 20 years. I just recently ran for Congress. Love the process. I enjoy talking with the people. I'll tell you, the biggest challenge with running for office in California is being able to raise the sort of money that's necessary to win an election.
Right, I would imagine California is probably one of the most expensive states, if not the most expensive in the union.
So Craig, we're going to have you on again. I love talking with you. Thank you for coming on today.